Welcome to the Tuesday, February 1st, 2022 Tompkins County Legislature meeting. The time is 5:30. If you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you all. Roll call of members.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Deborah Dawson.
Here.
Henry Granison is asked to be excused. Rich John.
Promoting Rich to panelist now here.
Rich John.
Here. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Dan Klein.
Here.
Ann Corman.
Present.
Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Mezzi.
Here.
Veronica Pillar. Here. Lee Shirtliff. Mike Sigler.
Here.
Travis Brooks. Randy Brown.
Here.
Shauna Black.
Here.
11 members present.
Thank you, Kathy. We will start off our meeting by having a presentation of proclamations. This evening, we have two proclamations. One honoring James Baker. And I would like to read the proclamation. I believe Mr. Baker is joining us.
It's possible it's this Jim B person,
Okay.
or is that, it could be the phone number as well.
Oh. Well, I know that Lance is here as well. Okay. Well, we have, there's a proclamation here, and I would like to read it to honor Mr. Baker. Whereas the Assigned Counsel Program is the provider of mandated representation in the legal system in Tompkins County, and whereas the effective and efficient operation of the Assigned Counsel Program is a critical function of Tompkins County government, and whereas James Baker Esquire has provided critical and timely support to the Assigned Counsel Program through his service as acting supervising attorney on several occasions and has provided critical support in other various means to the Assigned Counsel Program over the years. And whereas the ongoing contribution and work of James Baker Esquire has ensured that the Assigned Counsel Program continued to meet its mandate of providing effective and efficient representation to its clients to the benefit of the community. And whereas James Baker Esquire is now retiring from the active practice of law, now therefore be it resolved that I, Shauna Black, Chairwoman of the Tompkins County Legislature, on behalf of the Tompkins County Legislature, do hereby extend our deepest gratitude and recognition to James Baker for the critical contributions he has made to the Assigned Counsel Program, Tompkins County government, and the entire community of Tompkins County, and congratulate him on his retirement. In witness whereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the great seal of County of Tompkins to be affixed. This is the first day of February in the year of 2022. Thank you very much, Mr. Baker. And we will send the proclamation. And we will send the signed proclamation to your address. Next, I'm sorry that Henry Granison cannot join us this evening, but Henry has made arrangements for the Dorothy Cotton Singers to have a song sung to the legislature and the audience here. So if you could all look at the screen here and enjoy the music. Again, I want to thank Henry Grandison for providing the video, and as always, the Dorothy Cotton singers, there are a few of us that were here a few years back whenever they actually came to the chambers, and that was definitely one of my fondest memories that we've had in this chambers, was having a very full room full of singers, and it was absolutely incredible and beautiful. So I do miss a time whenever we had that, and hopefully we'll be able to go back to having more events and more singing by the singers. There is a proclamation for Black History Month. Whereas the first event recognizing Black history was celebrated during a week in February 1926, encompassing the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, two key figures in the history of African Americans. And whereas Negro History Week represented the culmination of the efforts of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history, to enhance knowledge of Black history through the Journal of Negro History, published by the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which was founded by Dr. Carter Woodson and Jesse Moreland. And whereas the celebration has expanded to a month in 1976, the nation's bicentennial and 50 years after the first celebration, and whereas African Americans helped develop our nation in countless ways, those recognized, unrecognized, and unrecorded, and whereas the contributions of African American residents and scientists, inventors, educators, farmers, homemakers, and explorers of earth and sky have been recognized annually during National African American History Month. And whereas African American citizens have participated and continue to in every American effort to secure, protect, and maintain the essence and substance of American democracy. And whereas Tompkins County's African American community continues to thrive due to the irrefutable contributions of many trailblazing Black Americans, including civil rights leader Dr. Dorothy Cotton, Pulitzer Prize winner Alex Haley, Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison, Ruth Carroll Taylor, the first Black flight attendant in the United States, and many more phenomenal leaders of the Black community locally, nationally, and globally. And whereas virtually every aspect of our community's life has been influenced by African Americans, whether in arts, medicine, government, labor, business, or volunteerism. And whereas the Black History Month 2022 theme, Black Health and Wellness, explores the legacy of activities, rituals, and initiatives that Black communities have done to be well. And now, be it therefore resolved that the Tompkins County Legislature does hereby proclaim the month of February 2022 as Black History Month in Tompkins County. Resolve further that together with our entire community, we join in celebration and recognition of the African American community, honoring the triumphs and struggles of African Americans throughout U.S. history, including the civil rights movement and their artistic, cultural, and political achievements. Resolve further that the Pan-African flag shall be flown on the county's flagpoles during Black History Month. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of Tompkins County, State of New York, on this first day of February 2022. Are there any comments from legislators? Okay. Mike Lane?
Very short. Certainly appreciated the Dorothy Cotton singers as well, and singing the national anthem. We appreciated that, and the proclamation was very fitting and well read. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Next is announcements of executive sessions and reordering of business. This evening, we will not have an executive session. Now let's open it up for privilege of the floor. And I just want to read some of the rules for speaking under privilege of the floor. Number one, I agree to a 3-minute time limit. Number 2, I agree not to raise my voice. Number 3, I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, libelous language or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. Number 4, I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. Number 5, after 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. Number 6, I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. We have added a few more rules to that, to include members of the public are invited to attend virtually to participate in privilege of the floor. You will be promoted as a panelist to provide remarks, and when done, you will be removed from the meeting by the host. You are then invited to watch the meeting on the county's YouTube channel. Thank you very much. First up, we have Zachary Wynn.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name's Zach Wynn. I've spoken at previous meetings. Black History Month is great and everything. The reality is that people of all races, colors, creeds are now in a civil rights struggle against the unconstitutional and illogical mask and vaccine mandates that are ravaging the economy and affecting every aspect of daily life in a totally unnecessary way. And each and every one of you on this legislature are directly responsible for the imposition on civil liberties that is affecting everyone within the county. And with the recent judgment from a New York Supreme Court judge that the mask mandate was unconstitutional, and then the reversal of that while is appealed, I'm asking each and every one of you to critically examine what benefit these masks actually provide. It has been acknowledged by the CDC that cloth masks do nothing to prevent viruses. And it is affecting people's ability to support themselves or even go out and seek work. I was forced to leave my job cooking because I would not do so in a mask. And I really urge each and every one of you to think about what you are doing. You think you're doing the right thing by enforcing these policies. There were people in Jim Crow South who thought they were promoting the correct policies when they were doing the wrong thing. So I believe that is the position that you yourselves exist within. And I'm calling on all of you to please call on the governor to end this insane policy, to stop enforcing it on a county level, and to get down to the business of dealing with the real problems this community faces. There was just a woman's body fished out of the inlet the other night. I have not seen a press release about that. No indication if it was foul play, if it was a suicide, if it was someone from the jungle who fell in the water. There are plenty of issues for you to tackle, including the botched police reform that are thankfully now departing Mayor Svante Merrick was the architect of. So now that he's going to be gone and the spring is here, I ask you all to reevaluate your priorities moving forward. With that, I will leave you to the rest of your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Next, we have Michael Vincent Crea.
He was just on here a second ago. Let's see. I'm not seeing Mr. Korea at this time.
Okay. We will go forward in our agenda, and if he shows up, then we will allow him a chance to speak. Okay, let's move on to municipal officials. This afternoon, we are joined by George McGonigal and Patrick Mayler from the city of Ithaca.
Hi, George.
Great.
Excuse me, Shauna. We can't hear anything
Okay,
George is saying.
yeah, we're going to move him to a different microphone. Thank you.
Is this one working?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. So this is Patrick Mayler. He represents the 4th Ward on Common Council, and he will be splitting this job with me, coming to every other full meeting. As it stands, he'll come to the middle of the month, and I'll come to the first of the month. I had maybe one thing to say, because our agenda is light tomorrow, but I wanted to bring your attention to a situation involving the Green Street parking garage redevelopment. The IDA arranged for a sales tax exemption for this project. And it was thought mistakenly that this would be the entire sales tax amount, when in fact, according to state law, the state portion is forgiven, but they had to collect the city's portion and the county's portion. So as a consequence of that, the city got a check for about $250,000 that they were planning on using for the project. So tomorrow we'll be voting to return that $250,000 to the project. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and I don't know for sure, but I think the county's portion was over $100,000. And so you're going to have the option of doing the same thing if you so choose. If you want a more particular account of this situation, I would encourage you to contact Nels Bone at the IURA. And that's all I got.
Thank you, George, and welcome, Patrick. It's nice to have you both. And let's open it up for questions. I see Rich John's hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And George, thank you for your call earlier today. I've received an email from Tom Knight with some further information, and I will certainly follow up with Heather McDaniel at the IDA to try to figure out what happened here. But certainly we want to give this project the correct incentive. If there was an incorrect payment made that would change that incentive, we should look at how we can make it right. But I'll certainly follow up on that, George. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Rich. Any other questions for Patrick and George? Mike Lane?
Well, I want to say welcome to Patrick. Patrick, could you tell us a little bit about how you've come onto onto your council and how's it going, and about your district and how it might relate with our county efforts?
Sure, more than happy to. Well, lovely to meet you all. I'm Patrick Mayler. I think George mentioned I'm 20. My birthday's on Thursday, so I turned 30. I turned 21 on Thursday, and I don't have any gray hair yet. But I represent the fourth ward of the city of Ithaca. That's most of College Town and parts of West Campus. I know we're looking at redistricting at the moment, and West Campus is now conglomerated into one census block. So we'll see what that looks like next year. But a little bit about myself. I was appointed to fill the vacancy left by Steve Smith back in October of 2021. So I'm technically the senior ward mate for the fourth ward at the moment by about 30 days. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to being here every other Tuesday or every fourth Tuesday and working more closely with you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I had one other thing I wanted to mention, and this is Black History Month, and at GAC, there'll be a series of events, and I used to depend on Leslin to tell you the details, but I guess tonight I'll depend on Travis because I can't remember the name of the featured speaker or what date they are going to be speaking, but it'll be a virtual event, and I encourage you all to tune in.
Thank you very much, George.
And if you're wondering why I got my haircut, Laura Lewis made me get my haircut.
Laura's tough. Now that she's in charge, who knows what's going to go down. Very nice, George. Thank you. Okay, next, let's move to legislators' privilege of the floor. I can't believe this. There we go. Mike Lane.
Something happened in New York City several days ago that was a real tragedy. We lost two of New York City's police officers who were gunned down. They entered a situation which must be terrifying for most police officers. It's a domestic. They'd been called to the scene to help put down a domestic issue, to quiet it. And they went to a door, the door opened, and the shots were fired from a stolen gun with an oversized magazine. We need to think about what our police officers do, our deputies, our state police, every day, every time they do a traffic stop, every time they get called to a domestic situation. They don't know what they're going to encounter. A few years ago, we had an officer in the city of Ithaca who was slain by a person with mental problems. These things can happen, and we need to understand our police officers, and we need to support the best we can with the kind of training that they need when they go into these situations. They need to be able to rely on that training, even though they may never be able to fully expect the unexpected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Rich, John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly don't want to belabor the proclamation we did earlier, but having been a longtime attorney in Ithaca and having the privilege of serving in the profession at the same time as Jim Baker, I just wanted to speak for a few moments about how important it is that we have our assigned counsel program and that we have local attorneys who step up and work within it. It's a key to our criminal justice system and our democracy that people can get able defense when they're charged with a crime. Jim Baker is one of the best we've had in our community for decades. You know, certainly for many people, the image of an attorney is what they see on the television commercials, where there's promises that somebody's going to get you a lot of money. Most attorneys don't advertise on television, and I doubt Jim Baker ever did. What he did do is a remarkably good job for year on year to help people in our community in some of the worst times of their lives. And he earned the respect of the Tompkins County Bar Association in the process. So just wanted to put a little bit more human face on it and tie him into the good work he's done in our community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rich. Any other comments from legislators? Lee Shirtliff?
Just briefly, thank you, Mike, for your comments regarding the situation in New York. And just to echo this, many of you know I'm an active volunteer with the Groton Fire Department and have a regular crew that I run with. And Sunday night at a late hour, we were called out for a person outside. We got to the scene. It was an older resident who had fallen and was not able to get up, and it was below zero weather, and was discovered by a very alert officer, Hillary Ninavaji of the Groton Police Department, driving by, saw a motion and stopped. Had she not been on patrol and through that neighborhood, I hate to think what the result would have been. And it's just an example of the work that goes on day in and day out, the things you never hear about, the things you never see, but the value that's provided to our communities is immeasurable. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Lee, for sharing that story. So often we do not hear those stories. And unfortunately, over the past few years, the police have definitely received some negative attention. So I appreciate hearing stories of local officers that are serving our community that clearly might have saved this person's life. So thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, I see none. Thank you all. I would like to move on to the chair's report, as well as I do have an appointment. Each February, we recognize Black History Month, and I'd like to take a moment in my chair's report to reflect on and celebrate Black history in Tompkins County. We have a rich history of influential Black residents. In fact, I could give a full report on the amazing people that live in our county and have made great contributions to our community. Our History Center, housed in the Tompkins Center for History and Culture, has a great set of resources on local Black history, from the Underground Railroad to new curriculum from Southside Community Center. I would like to point everyone to the History Center's oral history collection, where you can hear recent reflections on the Black experience in our community. When I see these resources, I feel proud of the work that the county does to support the History Center, archiving and presenting this work. While we might focus on and highlight the remarkable or influential, every Black history is important in our ongoing work, as the county should honor and support the diversity of backgrounds and experiences in our community. I look forward to seeing and hearing about the programming that our community partners and departments participate in this month to honor Black history. On a different note, Vice Chair Deborah Dawson and myself have continued to lobby our state and federal representatives for funding to assist with childcare and homelessness in our county. The response has been very positive. Please stay tuned to our educational session that will be sponsored by NASEC about the New York State budget. Mark your calendars for February 16th at 11 a.m. Zoom information will be sent out prior to the meeting. A small update regarding the Senate and Assembly district lines. The proposed bill includes Tompkins County, and it appears to be all in one state Senate district, which is good news. Senate District 53 includes all of Tompkins, Binghamton, and part of Cortland County. The Assembly district would stay the same. Today, just as a reminder, starts February, and all of our new committee assignments are now in effect. I have one chair's appointment, and that is for the Tompkins County Workforce Development Board, Kim Babuka, business representative, and her term expires June 15th, 2024. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, I see none. And if we can move on to reports by County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam
Lisa.
Chair. Thank you. Tonight we have a COVID update and we have a reimagining public safety update. And we'll start with the reimagining public safety update. I'll turn it over to our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, Deanna Carruthers. And Monalita Smiley is joining us as well, our CJC Director.
This is the first day of Black History Month, and so we're excited as it couldn't be more momentous than having Mona here on this very important day, honoring again the irrefutable contributions of Black Americans to our country. And so at the end, we'll have Mona say a few words. And so again, we can't overstate how pleased we are. Before we get started, I'd also just like to echo Mike's sentiments regarding the loss of law enforcement lives in the New York City area. We continue to stand and pray with those families and those folks who have been killed in the line of duty. And I think that this also is also even poignant as we think about Black History Month, the complicated, complex history that Black Americans have within with our law enforcement partners. And so I lift all those things as we pray for those folks who have fallen and that they continue to be safe as they do their work, but that also as we work in the work of reimagining, that we continue to support all of our constituents in this work. And so I'm going to share screen really quickly. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that Deb?
Yes, it is. Hi, Deanna.
All right, so we're ready to go. This is one of the beautiful murals that we like to share with that. Again, thank Dominic for highlighting the work of our artists here around the work of reimagining public safety. Again, Executive Order 203 looked at disproportionate minoritized contact with people of color, and we're continuing to lead the state in this area, again, as centering communities of color. The charge was the plans were jointly adopted between the city and county in April, or again, March 30th and March 31st successfully, and then those plans continue to be implemented, knowing that our plans are collaborative. And again, one of the plans was to create and implement a community justice center. Community Justice Center, specifically, Mona Smiley is her first meeting with us, was hired and started at the beginning of this month. She is going into her 4th week on the job. And so getting settled into the Tompkins County Mental Health Department. And so thank you to the folks at the Mental Health Office Department for making her feel so welcome. And again, working on a mural that would also be placed in that space to commemorate the work that they're doing. Over the last month, she's met with numerous city and county stakeholders, reviewed the plans extensively. There's been a lot of reading. This has been, again, a multi-year effort. And so trying to bring Mona up to speed on where we are in the process, but also knowing that she's been paying attention as a resident of our community. So work is not new to her and the community is not new to her at the same time, but her being in a different position within the work that we're doing. Also, in addition to that, folks are interested in the work that the county is doing. And so making her available for media availability to explain the history, the background that her background and the work that she's done, in addition to being trained on the website. Some of our plans in progress here include the City of Ithaca Department redesign. While that's not a county plan, that plan will be submitted to Common Council in March, knowing that folks from the Department of Emergency Response have been a part of some of those conversations to help folks understand how dispatch works. We've also had some support from our ITS department, helping people know how our standardized system and how any impact or any change to the work at the City of Ithaca would potentially influence the work in the villages or towns. And so emphasizing that the work should be collaborative in nature. We will host the first, as we move to another plan, a collaborative plan is the community healing plan. Specifically, we will have our first session targeting intergenerational conversations between the Black community on February 12th. We will be having a one-on-one conversation with our law enforcement professionals as well to begin to talk about what that integrated experience will look like and how we begin to move those difficult conversations forward. And as it relates to the alternative response for wraparound health and human service delivery, we will be meeting tomorrow to parse out all the different parts and pieces of that. Again, knowing that this will be a one-year study to identify whether there's what types of responses our community will have. We know that, again, I think Mike said really well earlier, law enforcement officers never know what circumstances they're going to walk into. But then also, I think I heard Lee Shirtliff also mention that there was another circumstance where they helped an elderly person. And so law enforcement work is complicated, and the work of building bridges in the community is complicated. And one of the things that we heard resoundingly in the research and from the focus groups between law enforcement and people, members of the people of color in the community, was that law enforcement work, they have too many responsibilities. So how do we align the work of public safety for all in a way that is meaningful, that is just, and that meets the residents where they are, while also making sure that public safety is met at all levels. Then the next plan, in terms of the assigned counsel and district attorney, will continue those conversations. We're still waiting for our assessment back. We have entered into a contract with Measures for Justice to review our organizational readiness. I'd like to thank Lance and Matt for being such willing collaborators and sharing their data and giving us a better understanding of the work that they're doing. In addition to that, we'll continue our conversations around officer wellness, examining our employee assistance program, but also building upon those things. What do our law officers deserve the best resources that money can provide. And so what do we need to do to support them as we do this work? But also, it's just the right thing to do. And so those are the things that we're thinking about as we do this work. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Tompkins County Sheriff's Department. We've had a lot of meetings over the last month regarding the unarmed pilot program. We are excited to share that we have posted the 2 sheriff's clerks positions that will start the pilot program. So they're open for the next 30 days. And again, thank Jen and Derek and the lieutenants in their area, along with folks from CPE that have methodically talked through the process of what that pilot program will look like. And also, we'd like to thank the Department of Emergency Response for beginning some of those, being a part of some of those conversations as well. As we begin to do that, we're also interviewing a sergeant to supervise the area as well. And so that pilot program for the county is coming alive, knowing that we've identified some of the ancillary duties that will allow, that will free up time on road patrol, so that road patrol officers can do the diligent work that they are doing. And so we're excited about that program, and we'll be sharing additional information around that program in the near future. In terms of plans launching soon, one of the things we heard about is looking at traffic enforcement and looking at data. Data is complicated. We know that there are lots of different ways to look at data. One thing we also have agreed on is that we need a better sense of our demographic data and what the data is telling us. And so that's something that we're going to be looking at very, very closely in the future. We're also looking at recruitment and retention of officers. Last week, Ruby, myself, Shelley, and so a couple of team members attended a recruitment and retention for law enforcement officers conference in Philadelphia. What it told us is that our markets are stressed in terms of recruitment and retention. There were folks from all over the country having the same issues. And so we were looking for some new ideas, knowing that everyone is looking at the same pool. So we'll continue to do that work, and we're excited about the relationship that we're building with within our criminal justice system in terms of recruitment and retention for diversity. What's next? We will issue a report coming up in the next couple of months for the Community Justice Center Advisory Board subcommittee has been meeting over the last several months, and they've had very, very, very robust discussions. And if there's additional comments, I think Rich and Shauna serve as county representatives and meet weekly at 8:30 in the morning and are part of those very, very serious discussions. And so we will make recommendations on what this advisory board will look like, knowing that it's a joint advisory board with the city and county. We're looking at representation. We're looking at what the role of law enforcement is. What does it mean what does disproportionate minoritized contact look like? What is a lived experience? So we're asking all the key questions that need to be elevated so that whatever board is developed, that again, we continue that board is able to address and support the implementation of Executive Order 203. And then in terms of the city, they, again, as I mentioned earlier, they will deliver the report to Common Council in March, and knowing that many of the recommendations that could be planned will link into the other joint plans. And so with that, we'll stand for questions, and then also have Mona introduce herself and take a minute or so to introduce yourself. So Mona, would you start, and then we'll take questions if there are any.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Mona Smiley. It's been a whirlwind 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. Like Deanna said, lots of reading, lots of meet and greets. I appreciate the warm welcome that I've received from everyone. I'm looking forward to digging in and being caught up, getting caught up, and then digging into the information and, seeing these plans come to fruition. So I appreciate the kind words that everyone has shared with their excitement of me being in this position, and I look forward to getting some work done. Thank you.
Great. Thank you both. Mona, welcome to Tompkins County. We are very glad to have you. Okay, we do have some questions. Deborah Dawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Mona. Mona, before I ask my question, I want to welcome you. You are a brave woman.
Thank you.
So we will do everything we can to support you in this job. Deanna, you mentioned that we were hiring now for that sheriff's unarmed pilot program. Could you just give us a general idea of what the position description entails?
Sure. And also, I would also like to speak to relationship and partnership. So this process started with a small group of people. So myself, the sheriff's office, we brought folks together from CP as well to say, let's unpack the actual plan recommendation. What did we agree to? What did we talk about? And this was actually one of the things that the sheriff's office originally had proposed, and mentioned that there's a lot of stress and strain in that. They mentioned that there was a shortage in terms of road patrol. And we also know in terms of disproportionate minoritized contact that a lot of traffic tickets, traffic citations, things of that nature is where those first interactions start. And so we had identified that we'd like to have an unarmed pilot program. And specifically to your question is, what will a sheriff's clerk do? They will be working with dispatch to take some of the non-emergent calls. That could be, for example, could be a deer down. And so what would need to happen? So that would necessarily need an emergency response, but we also still need to get the deer off the road. It could be a noise complaint of some kind. We have the sheriff's office did was provide a list of calls that were frequent, but at the same time were not considered dangerous, and to also again give folks on the road patrol opportunity to do some of that work. And so we're working with the Department of Emergency Response to dispatch those folks through the sheriff's office, and those folks will provide customer service. They'll answer the questions, and also if they call 911, they'll redirect them to the appropriate service. And so this will be a tremendous partnership. As a part of this, we'll be reaching out to our villages and towns and say, this is a potential service change. What does this look like? And then also asking the community as well, what other calls would you be interested in us fielding in a different way? And so again, those more ancillary duties that will if someone calls 911, those could be addressed differently. Let's please note, I think it's really, really important. If it's a domestic violence call, anything serious, gunshots fired, you will receive the traditional response. There is no change in the mechanisms or the process for those things.
So these people, will they just answer calls and dispatch the appropriate responder, or are they actually going to be responding as well?
They'll be responding as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And also what we will plan to do, because as we develop this, we're actually going to bring you a chart of the workflow and the types of things, more specifics as we spell them out, because we know that this is a very, very complicated thing. And we also know this will be a change in terms of what service looks like. And so that's actually something that we talked about in our last meeting, that we want to show you a picture of what this will actually look like. And then also I'll share with you the types of calls that will be received and where and how they'll be dispatched. And also in terms of public safety, they've identified the appropriate leadership to make sure that it goes to the appropriate hierarchy to get the appropriate response.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mike Lane?
Dan, I just didn't understand, I guess. So these unarmed responders are going to go to noise complaints?
They're not going anywhere. They'll be in the office. So these are calls that people can call in. They will not be in a car. They will not have no guns and sirens.
Right, that's what I wasn't understanding. When you said they would respond, when I respond, I think of an officer going somewhere.
Sure. So for example, we've had folks who call in and they may be calling the wrong place, but when you call 911, you expect a result. And so they will help triage some of those things and make sure they get to the right thing. And also we're working with the Department of Emergency Response right now to say, what does this look like? So how if you call doer, they will take you through like a decision-making tree. And so that decision-making tree in terms of if they ask this question, you go left, you ask this other question, you go right, or it takes you to these different things. You should only land there if that is, if the appropriate questions have been answered. And then from there, they will either provide you the right information, direct you to the right place, or redirect you as needed, knowing that these folks will work in the office. Public safety is at the heart of what we're talking about. And so developing a comprehensive training program for these new employees, but also knowing, because it's never done before, they won't be out in the community in that way.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ann Corman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Deanna, I had a question regarding, you said they'll have a decision tree. So is this for people that call directly to our sheriff's department, not through the Department of Emergency Response 911?
It could be both. We're still mapping out some of the final decisions, but if they call 911, they could actually end up getting these sheriff's clerks. But it would also be, when I say decision tree, that's like how it currently functions. So, you'll call a dispatcher and you'll give them some information. So based upon the information that is received from the caller, that tells them where they need to go. So based upon the protocols that have to be set up, again, this is how all of the different areas function. Then you could end up with the sheriff's clerk, depending upon the type of call, knowing that anything that we do, again, in advance in terms of communication, we want to make sure everyone is safe, making sure that the dispatchers have all the appropriate information, and also that our villages and towns are also aware of these things as well, which is why we also are planning on a comprehensive community engagement, or actually comprehensive communication process with the villages and towns, so that they are aware and know when these things are happening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I see none. Thank you both for joining us tonight. Next, I believe we have the person that had signed up for public comment. Why don't we go ahead and hop to Pastor Kriya? Welcome to the legislature.
Yes, good evening to the Madam Chair and all the members of our Tompkins County Legislature. This is Pastor Michael Vincent Kriya. My human rights ministry of 30 years, One ONE, One World Life Systems. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, I apologize. As I have said to many individuals, I'm delayed, not defeated. And I am certainly with everyone, at least myself, I'll speak for, aging dog, growing young, learning new tech, TEKS. So I thank you, Madam Chair, for the time. I thank all the members. I also want to thank who often don't get recognized, even since COVID, are the people who work behind the scenes. And in particular, I would like to recognize Miss Katrina McCloy, who's our deputy clerk for the legislature, who has assisted me over the past week. And I do believe each member has also received through her, under her auspices of the clerk, a letter of mine sent to Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg in Washington, D.C., regarding the renaming of the Ithaca Tompkins Airport, International Airport, to the Ruth Carroll Taylor International Airport. Have members received, and has Madam Chair received a copy of that letter yet?
I'm getting nods. Yes, we have.
Thank you very much. Before I directly speak to that, I just want to preface my remarks. The last time I was in chambers and spoke, I believe, was on the 8th of July 2015. Excuse me, Mike Lane at that time was chair, and I hear from what I've already heard, he is present. And I did inquire, and this might fall under his auspices of Committee for Government Infrastructure, if and when the legislature if and when the legislature acts on my request. One of the things that I have worked with many people, and we're all going through this right now, is that we know we need change. There's many instances, even in our own community, where people without the means to communicate their angst or their anger, their affirmation or their aspirations end up acting out in a deleterious way, and yet it deliberately challenges us to be creative and proactive. Let's use one example right in your midst. The defacing of that stone, the marker of when the DeWitt people arrived on the soil in which are all of our institutions, your own chambers are located on the Haudenosaunee Confederacy land. And
Pastor
so
Priya, the buzzer just went off for your time. I'd be happy to give you another 30 seconds or so.
Yes, what I am saying is Bruce Carroll Taylor deserves to have her name put on the airport. I would hope that we could act and expedite that. She marks not only African American and also as a Cherokee heritage person, women's rights. And it also, she was fired only 6 months after because she got married. So it elevates for all of us. Instead of tearing down things, we erect an egalitarian example for everyone coming into our county and leaving our county, for women's rights, Black American, African American, and Cherokee indigenous people's rights, and most of all, egalitarian rights, where even Pete Buttigieg and Chase were chastised because of their parental love of their twins, and in benefits being disparate in the way that we deliver services and deliver employee hires, salaries, and benefits. So I hope you would consider, and we can work on this, but I would ask almost an immediate proclamation by the 11th of February, which is the date that she goes by Carol, and I spoke with both her son and with Carol around Thanksgiving time, and they really welcome it and were very surprised by it. But I had already it in the works, and had not been for COVID, it would have been done. So I thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming tonight and speaking with us, and I appreciate your time. Thank you. Okay. If we could go back to the reports from County Administrator Lisa Holmes, did you have anything else to report?
Yes, we still have a COVID report, and we have Amy Hendricks, Deputy County Administrator, and Frank Krupa, our Public Health Director, with us.
Good evening, everyone. We are going to do this a little differently, break the norm here. We actually do not have a slideshow for you this evening. I'm going to provide you some updates, and Frank is here to answer questions, but we're going to try it a little differently without as much detail, but of course, we're open to answer any questions you may have. So as far as what's happened around COVID since the last time we met through the end of the last month, our incidence rates, at this time, we have 16 hospitalized, 54 total deaths within Tompkins County related to COVID, and that's an increase of 4 additional lives lost since we last met. We have changed our data table. That started yesterday. We've also changed how often we're doing the data table. So we have been operating that table 7 days a week. Pretty much since the beginning. We had a couple holidays where staff didn't update that table, but we are not going to be doing that anymore. We're going to go down to 5 days a week and continue to offer all of the different things within our data set, but the table is going to change, and we put out a press release really showing that. Locally, we've been distributing self-test kits. We partnered with the libraries I know TCPL did their test kit distribution event today, and the test kits went very quickly. We're continuing to work through what distribution looks like, and we'll be hopefully having a large amount of KN95 masks coming into the community within the next 2 weeks. And we'll be partnering with the various organizations to get them out to our community members. We have continued with booster clinics, as well as first dose and second dose clinics for our youth ages 5 to 11. So we're continuing to provide boosters and vaccine, although the uptake has been waning and vaccines readily available in our community. So the last large scale booster clinic we held was last Saturday. And right now we're not planning to do another one of those in the immediate future. We're going to continue to monitor that, see if there's a need and what that looks like. But at this point, we've kind of wound down on those booster clinics. I think those are the major things. We've also worked with the chamber recently to thank the business communities and others, remind them of guidance, resources that we offer. As you can tell, things are changing with COVID again. We're hoping that things continue to stay kind of more positive, and some of these changes will impact how we do operations. With the change in contact tracing, I asked Frank earlier today how the health department was, and he said it's almost quiet, which is not a status we've seen in a long time. That doesn't mean there's not still a lot to do there, but it's definitely a change in our operations. So that is all I have for updates at this time. Frank, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add in before we start for questions, if there are any questions.
Yeah, the only thing that I would offer is that we'll have a press release probably coming out tomorrow about booster doses and continuing what Amy just said, but also we were able to pull some data out of our immunization system, and we have roughly 41,000 residents that have been boosted. I know that number has been asked several times, and we never got it from the state, so we had our data people dig into the system and do their magic and get us that number. We will be reporting it more regularly over time, now that we're, have a way to collect that information. So just wanted you to be aware that we're at about 41,000 residents that have been boosted.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Amy and Frank? Deborah Dawson.
Sorry. I want to thank Amy and Frank for this more streamlined presentation. I certainly hope it's a omen that we've turned the corner from pandemic to endemic. And I wanted to take this opportunity. You mentioned the distribution of the self-test kits and the masks. I want to take this opportunity to address a point that has been repeatedly brought to our attention, which is the contention that cloth masks are ineffective. No one is saying that you should wear an ineffective cloth mask. We are now in a position to make available to everyone who wants it a KN95 mask, and those are quite effective. So thanks for indulging me.
Thank you, Deborah. Mr. Randy Brown.
Thank you, Amy and Frank. A lot of the COVID, and a lot of people give me their opinions on COVID more than anything else. Lately, the sheriff. And really, we're bound by what the state does. The state tells us what to do, and we don't have a choice in that, really. The courts may decide that at some point. We may have something to decide, but that's the way it is right now. But I think that now, and I've seen some emails on contact tracing. I understand why we're not doing it. Makes sense to me. But I think that guidance for people in giving them some optimism is a role of the county legislature, and because the health department comes through us. When I hear what people say about COVID and the weariness of it all, and the effects it's having on everybody, nobody's exempt from it. I know a person recently who passed away from it, so it's a very serious situation. But I think we need to give guidance to people, and in the way that we give guidance to people, the internet doesn't do it. And I don't really, and we have a newspaper, the Journal, which is not a good newspaper for anybody as far as local news. But we do have some good local papers, and maybe we can help use them. A lot of people read these local papers. The Tompkins Weekly is a great paper that I read religiously, and my whole family does, and a lot of people do. So I think there's ways that we can communicate with people to reach a wider range of people, and to give them some idea of what we've been doing, and I know Tompkins County has done a great job with this. I mean, probably one of the best in upstate New York, without a doubt. You guys are doing a good job. But I think that we can improve our messaging. So that's my point.
Thank you, Randy. Next, Ann Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the abbreviated update, Amy and Frank. One question I had, you said we're looking to receive a large number of KN95s, and did you also say more self-tests also?
So we don't know about the self-test kits. I will say that we're procuring the KN95s ourselves through a grant program through New York State. So it's a little different, but I don't know about the self-test kits, when we'll receive them, or the amount. Each time we've had those distributions, we've received about 4,000 self-test kits, which does not go very far, but it does help. I will say the other thing with self-test kits is they've been readily available in our community at pharmacies and other locations. Those, of course, are for purchase. And so the self-test kits that we've been able to receive have been provided to those who can't traditionally purchase those.
As a follow-up, the KN95 masks, will they be distributed through the municipalities? I'm just thinking I have a couple of municipal meetings coming up next week.
So we're planning to partner with the various channels that we had in the past. So some will go through nonprofits. We will also reach out to municipalities. We may be looking at a drive-through event or a pop-up event. So we're going to try to work with different contractors. The other thing that will come with these KN95 masks is more information regarding masks in general, and why cloth masks when they're useful, because there's still a useful life to those as well. All the way through to how and why to use KN95s the correct way. So there'll be more information with those. And I know Dominic and the PIO team is working on that. And we'll continue to update you all on that information.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Frank and Amy? I see no other hands. Thank you both for attending tonight. Lisa, do you have any other topics to discuss for the county administrator report?
Not at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. County Attorney, Mr. Bill Troy.
Good evening, everybody. I have two things to report. The first is that we have made an offer and it's been accepted to a candidate for the deputy county attorney slot. We've agreed generally not to reveal the name of this person so that the attorney has a chance to wrap up affairs in the attorney's practice. And I think that's reasonable, but I think in the next few weeks we will release it. And we're very happy with this candidate. Candidate's due to begin work with us in late February. Secondly, a jury trial started yesterday in an action against the county. It's in Supreme Court, Tompkins County. The action arises out of a motorcycle accident out in the town of Groton many years ago. The plaintiff was badly hurt, but we're taking the position, as bad as this was, the county really didn't do anything wrong. And I suppose in coming weeks, we'll find out who the jury agrees with on that. So the case is being tried by counsel from the Queensbury area, who is retained by our insurance company. So we may have an outcome by the time of the next meeting, and we'll let you know.
Thank you, Bill. Are there any questions for Bill? I see none. Thank you. Next, we have Director of Finance, Rick Snyder.
Hi, I have two things also to report tonight. Before I get into the casino revenue and the room tax revenue, we are in the midst of 2 field audits right now. This week, we're doing the IDA audit field work, and we're also doing the field work for the Tompkins task, which is the Tobacco Asset Securitization Corporation. So we're very busy with that, along with getting all the January payroll work that seems to be mounting each year. With the new payroll system, we've had to make changes, and it was difficult, but staff came around and really made it happen so that we could get all W-2s out and the 1099s out on time. And we were sweating it there for a while, but we got all that work done. So we're in the midst of 2 audits this week. We also found out we're going to have another triennial review from the federal government for the TCAT operations. And I'm working with Dwight, Drew, a number of other people at TCAT. We only have 2 weeks to fulfill a very large data request, which precedes any audit that the federal government does. And so we're in that research and gathering of documents stage on the triennial review for the TCAT operation under the federal government. So with all that going on, I don't have sales tax figures for you tonight for December like I thought, but I do have the year-end reports to share with you. The first one is on casino revenue. So I'll share my screen right now, and please let me know if you can see the casino revenue report. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can.
Okay. We had another good quarter. Down here in this section of the report, you can see that the fourth quarter compared to for 2020 compared to 2021, it went up quite a bit to $589,590 in the fourth quarter. That's up 75.3% compared to last year. And our year-to-date receipts for casino revenue is under 2021 total column, $2,149,000 roughly. Those year-to-date receipts are up $1,311,432 or 156.6%. So we have a very large increase. We had some estimates of this for you a month or 2 ago, and now these are the actual figures for ending the year, just getting the checks today from New York State. The original budget for 2021 was only $675,000. So for the end of fiscal 21, we ended up $1,473,731 over budget in casino revenues. And then I sent this to you in an email. If you want some more detail, you can click on that and pull up this report. I won't get too detailed, but in the past, some of you have asked for the breakdown between the 2 casinos. So I've shared that information for each of the 4 quarters in 2021 between the Del Lago Casino and the Tioga Casino. So before I move on to room tax, do we have any questions about casino gaming receipts?
Any questions? Mike Sigler.
Hi, Rick. I mean, besides the fact that I think gambling is just a big money shift from one group of people to another group of people without creating anything, it does look like it's here to stay. I'm just wondering about sports betting in New York State. Are they going to be handling those revenues differently? Do you know? I don't know if you know much on that, or if that's something we're going to need to investigate as a county.
I mean, is the sports betting, is it going to be kind of like wherever the bet was made, we get cash for that? Or is it going to be run through wherever the sport?
I really don't.
Sports betting
like,
facility
we
is set up. We
I
haven't
don't know
investigated that at
others.
all. No, I'm just curious. That's all.
I know that there was an additional payment made to us this quarter called a hold harmless payment. I don't know if that has anything to do with the gaming facilities or not, but we ended up getting 2 checks that when you added them together, that's how we came up with this fourth quarter amount. But no, I'll have to report back to you on that and see if I can find some information. I don't know about that type of betting right now, how that will impact these casino gaming revenues.
That might even be out of your wheelhouse. That might be something I have to ask like a state person. So
yeah,
I was just curious about it. So
Thanks, Mike. Rich, John?
Yeah, Mike, thank you for bringing that up. Certainly in this, in the playoff games for the football league, the amount of advertising for sports betting was remarkable to me. And I think we are going to see the impacts of that locally and have to deal with them. And I hope that there's some parallel revenue stream to help us do that. But anyway, if there are answers on that, I think it's worth getting them. Thanks.
Thanks, Rich. Deborah Dawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for this glowing report, Rick. Do we know what that hold harmless payment is about? And if we don't, are we going to?
Yeah, they put out an email on it. It's fairly complicated. There was with Del Lago, they got a reduction in the amount of sales tax they had to pay on a certain type of betting, and they negotiated a reduction. And for some reason, that reduction amounted to a higher profit margin for that organization, and the counties that are associated with it ended up getting this hold harmless amount. So that's really all I know about it right now. Is there was a change in the formula for sales tax for Del Lago.
So was the payment supposed to compensate the counties for lost sales tax revenue? Or, okay.
Right. So the agreement between the state and the casino was for any loss that the municipalities, the counties would have as a result of that negotiated agreement, that the state would make the counties whole. And I think that check out of the whole fourth quarter check, it was like out of that $589,000, it was 67,000 or something like that.
Thank you.
Michael Lane?
When we first heard that we were going to be receiving casino revenues, we did do some investigation on whether or not we had a gambling addiction problem in Tompkins County, and or whether we might be experiencing a greater gambling addiction problem. At that time, we didn't, the folks at social services and other places didn't feel that we had one, a significant one, or that we should be trying to set up a program particularly to try to remedy some of that. Certainly there are people who stand in line every week and spend a lot of money on lotto tickets and other forms of gambling, and now with sports betting. It might be worth out whether we should be reinvestigating that and whether there may be more families hurt by gambling than in the past.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions for Rick Snyder? I see none. Thank you, Rick.
Now,
Appreciate the report.
I'll move into the room tax portion of the report now.
Great, thank you.
Room tax is very good. Also, here on the left-hand side of this report, you should be viewing it now. The 2021 fourth quarter came in at $818,639. Compared to fourth quarter, that was only of last year, that was only $289,417. So that was a very significant increase in our fourth quarter room tax. And that means our fourth quarter room tax was up 182.9% compared to fourth quarter last year. And our year-to-date room tax, which is now $3,008,998 for the year. And that's the final figure. And Nick Hemholt reported out on this at his committee level meeting last week. Since then, we've had a chance to audit the numbers, make some reconciliations to our general ledger, and we agree with his report that $3,008,998 is 142.8% over last year. And then here on the right-hand column, you can see the breakdown, 2020 versus 2021 for hotels and bed and breakfast on the two columns here on the right. The stats for how well we collected in this last quarter, we had 110 registered lodging establishments. 30 of them were hotels, motels, 80 were registered bed and breakfast. We have 7 delinquent hotels and motels and 9 delinquent bed and breakfast inns. The follow-up report from our Treasury Department shows notes on how well we did in talking to these folks in both the hotels and the bed and breakfasts. For example, in the hotels, all establishments send in returns and payments except for 7. And then there's a breakdown of what we did with those 7 people. 3 of them paid in January, 2 were sent reminder letters, 2 are the same hotel that didn't pay any other room tax in 2020 or 2021, and how we're working with the county attorney's office on legal action. For the bed and breakfasts, there were 8, and they were all sent delinquent letters. Since then, 3 of them paid, 5, there's no response. And there's 2 new bed and breakfasts. So these are just some of the follow-up work that Lisa Schott in the Treasury Division does on room tax. Overall, you can see the report. It's a really good report. This $3 million is probably the highest year we've had now in room tax. And because somebody asked last time to show it compared to 2019 figures, I'm not going to read it all tonight, but this is attached to the email that you got. Here is a table that shows room tax going back to 2011 all the way up to 2021. So you can see that we were really down in 2020, only 1.2 million. Now we're over 3 million. How does it compare to 2019? Better. We were at 2.9 million in 2019. In fact, the $3 million, breaking that $3 million threshold is indeed our highest year. We did have a number of years where we were in the 2.8, 2.9 vicinity. But going all the way back to 2011, you can see where it was 1.9 million. And I've provided this information so you can do some analysis and compare it to the budget figure and see how well we came close or not too close to the budget in any given year. Of course, 2020 was the only really bad year that we had, and it's been resuscitated, so to speak. And I thought this would be a good report to share with you because it showed many years. And I know you can't see it probably sitting there looking at a screen, and I can make it bit bigger there, but you can see how well we've improved. So this is part of your packet that was emailed to you right before the meeting. And I'll take any questions you might have on this.
Thank you, Rick, for being the bearer of very good news. Randy Brown?
Thank you. What is the percentage that we're charging for hotel tax? And is there a tax on rental cars?
Rental cars. You mean rental cars all throughout the city, all throughout the county?
In a lot of other, I travel a lot, so in a lot of other counties, there's an actual tax on renting a car, much like you would have in a hotel tax. So I'm just curious if there was one.
That I don't think we have, but we just implemented last year at the airport. There is a fee that they have to pay per rental car at the airport. So, and that's generated additional revenue source for our airport enterprise fund. So there is a rental car fee for those in use at the airport. I don't think we have any rental car tax that I'm familiar with here in our county. And what was your first question again?
What is the actual percentage charge for hotel tax?
Oh yeah, that was increased just within the last year or two. I mean, it always was 5% for hotels and 3% for small bed and breakfast and very small facilities. And since that time, after much back and forth, we decided to make it 5% for everybody. So once again, those that had just a few rooms like bed and breakfast were being given so-called a break at 3%, but all the big hotels are paying 5%. Now everybody's on the same level playing field and they're all paying 5%.
Thank you.
Greg Mezzi?
Thanks, Rick. This is great news. I just think it's important to just mention and recognize that hospitality and the hotel workers within our community that without, they're going to work and dealing with how to handle, COVID environment and changing regulations. And I spent most of my professional career in the hospitality industry, so this is a little near and dear to my heart. But I just think it's important that we recognize, with reduced workforce, all the hard work that our folks in the tourism sector are doing. And I think this also just goes to show what a strong tourism destination we have, and the good work that our folks at the CVB and other folks that are supporting the tourism program. So this is great news, and I hope this number only continues to go up. So thanks for the great update, Rick.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Greg. Rich, John, and then Ann Corman.
Yeah, thanks. Just a clarification, the $287,000 of additional revenue, is that essentially late payments from 2020?
Yes.
Which would put our number a little bit below 2019, right? If we back that out and put that into 2020 rather than 2021.
I think the way that they're doing it, and there might be a better way, but it always was a fairly small number. It wasn't until the last couple of years where it got as big as it did that prior period. I think it's any prior period, Rich. So even if it's in a prior period in the same year or in a previous fiscal year.
Yeah, no, I take your point that I think our numbers are trending in the direction we want them to trend, but it doesn't seem that we've totally recovered, that there have been some impacts from 21 that probably we haven't overcome quite yet. Although it's getting better, which is what we want, is how I read it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Ann Corman.
Thank you. And I just wanted to mention, I am currently helping contribute to the room tax in various cities in Florida. But I was at least one of the folks, Rick, who asked you to include other years for the room tax, and that information is very helpful. Thank you for going back, so many years so that we can see that trend. And thank you for your report.
You can thank Nick Helmholt because he has a lot of tables and summaries and background numbers on room tax. He's really the room tax guru. And we asked him to help provide this information for us so I can give it to you. But I'll take credit tonight, but it's
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anne. Any other questions for Rick Snyder? I see none. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, I wanted to ask if there are any resolutions to be added to and withdrawn from the agenda. I see none. Let's move to the consent agenda. Resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group unless any member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included separately and individually as part of the business of standing or special committees. Let's start off with advisory board appointments. Health and Human Services Committee, Developmental Disabilities Subcommittee, Sheila McEarney. Mental Health Community Service Board Representative, term expires December 31st, 2025. Substance Abuse Subcommittee, Mandy Cockey. Community member, term expires December 31st, 2025. Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Water Resources Council, Liz Kreitinger. Watershed Organization Representative, term expires December 31st, 2024. Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Hillview Road Landfill Citizens Advisory Committee, Brian Caldwell, at-large member, term expires December 31st, 2023. Brian Eden, at-large member, term expires December 31st, 2024. Air Services Board, Ed Levine, at-large representative, term expires December 31st, 2024. Katie Borgella, Commissioner of Planning and Sustainability, term expires December 31st, 2024. Public Safety Committee, Advisory Board on Indigent Representation, Jerome Marisek, member, term expires December 31st, 2024. Housing and Economic Development Committee, Community Housing Fund, Henry Grannison, County Legislator, no set terms. Greg Mezzi, County Legislator, alternate, no set terms. Okay. And we are going to do those with the resolutions that we have. Housing and Economic Development Committee, Resolution A, appointments to Industrial Development Agency and Tompkins County Development Corporation, Board of Directors, and that is ID 10647. Resolution B, budget adjustment, Northside Apartments, Market View Carpenter Park Apartments, and Community Housing Trust, Scattered Sites 2020, ID 10661. Resolution C, amendment of the 2022 Tompkins County budget to reflect an amendment to the 2021 to 2022 budget for the Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council and authorization to implement the amendment, ID 10656. Public Safety Committee, Resolution D, accept grant from United Way to the Department of Emergency Response and in support of the ESC chat system for emergency responder communications, ID 10651. Resolution E, authorization to accept the Division of Criminal Justice LiveScan Grant 2022, Sheriff's Office, ID 10659. And if I could have a mover for the consent, moved by Veronica and seconded by Greg Mezzi. And let's do a roll call.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
13 ayes, 0 nos.
Thank you very much. Now let's move to the standing and special committees reports. Health and Human Services Committee, Chair Dan Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Health and Human Services Committee in its new formation will meet for the first time on Wednesday, February 16th at 3 o'clock. We had to move the date from the normal meeting time because of the holiday. So that's our first meeting of this new group.
Thank you very much, Dan. Any questions for Dan? Okay, thank you. Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Chair Mike Lane.
Thank you. We met on January 20th. We didn't have a heavy workload agenda, but we spent quite a long time talking about where we want to go in 2022 with our committee. We were fortunate to have the exiting member, Dan Klein, there, of course, and the entering member, Amanda Champion, there. So everyone was present who will be talking about facilities and infrastructure issues for next year. We actually went through the list of all of the departments and agencies which are going to be reporting to the F&I committee. Some of them are brand new to our committee. Some of them are all of them are very important. Some are going to need some of our attention. For example, with TCAT coming in to us, we want to pay a lot of attention to that, for example. We are losing the recycling and materials management from the committee, but we trust that that will be handled properly in the planning committee. So that was mainly what we did. Randy, was there anything else that we wanted to mention?
Great. Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike Lane? See none. Thank you. Moving on to the self-proclaimed best committee of the legislature, Government Operations Committee. Amanda Champion, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, we are the crown jewel of committees. So we will be meeting on Thursday at noon. We have a lot of interesting things on our agenda. We'll be getting a report from Jay Franklin in the assessment department about the AEM assessment role project preliminary review. We will be getting a report from Greg Potter in the IT department, who's going to talk to us a little bit about cybersecurity, which should be interesting. So you all should come to that. We are reviewing a policy about our green fleet, and we'll be voting on that. Administration is also going to give us some of their department goals for 2022. The committee will also talk about our committee goals. So committee members, please think about that and come prepared to talk a little bit about what your goals are for this year. We have a couple of regular resolutions, yearly resolutions, and we do also want to discuss one more time the travel and training funding for the recently elected legislators who we want to make sure that they have enough funding to go to NISAC conference, as well as if they have other conferences they want to go to this year. So we're going to have one more conversation about that. And it will be a lovely meeting. So Thursday at noon. Thanks.
Thank you, Amanda. Any questions for Amanda? I see none. Thank you. Planning, Development, and Environmental Quality Committee. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan Klein.
Thank you. There's something I forgot to mention about the Health and Human Services Committee meeting, but I could just throw in. So the one thing we know on our agenda so far, besides goal setting, is we're going to have an update on the status of the health department and mental health department mergers. So if that's a topic that's interesting to you, then feel free to tune in. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Dan. Next is the Planning, Development, and Environmental Quality Committee, Chair Ann Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met in the previous format of part of this committee, peak planning, energy and environmental quality. So we met on January 24th and we reviewed our goals. We had a couple of presentations, one of them from Sarah Kulata, who's the chair of our Climate and Sustainable Energy Board, and on their accomplishments in 2021, and it was quite a long list. So I'm really proud of this group and the participants in the community who are stepping forward to keep working on these issues. We also had a presentation from Irene Weiser, who was recently elected to be vice chair of the case board, and she gave a lot of background on this issue, but one of the major thing that she came to talk about was there's a concentrated animal feeding operation, commonly known as CAFO, up in Auburn, and they have a proposition in to do a project for renewable energy, they're calling it. And what they're doing is they're taking their biodigester that they have now, which turns animal waste into methane and then into electricity that they can use and also put back on the grid. But to make quite a lot more money, they're looking at purifying that methane that they make and compress it, and then truck that gas outside of Aurora through Tompkins County, which would probably go through Lansing, Ithaca, and Newfield, to a gas line in Corning, and that would then send that gas out of state, because apparently there's a lot of money in that. So at least she was very concerned about it, as am I. And so as far as peak committee, so that's ending and it's turning into PDEC. And so one of the things that I want to say was to thank members who are leaving the peak committee, legislators Amanda Champion and Dan Klein, and welcome returning member Deborah Dawson on PDEC, and also welcome legislators Greg Mezzi, who will be our vice chair, and legislators Randy Brown and Henry Granison. We'll have our next meeting. Oh, I had that written down. Hold on. February 28th at 1:30, and we don't have an agenda yet for that.
Thank you, Ann. I see Mike Sigler's hand up.
Hi, Annie. I'm just wondering about the digesters. I'm kind of wondering what of that is. I mean, you said you were concerned about it. I didn't understand what the downside of them doing that is.
Did you hear that, Ann?
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself. Yes, so some of the concerns are that it takes more energy to reprocess it. So to take the methane that was made from the biodigester to reprocess it. So you have energy loss, you have some methane that leaks, and then each time you handle it and then transport it and then put it into a pipeline, you're using up more energy to do that. And then you're also having more leaks along the way. And some people were, or at least Irene Weiser said there's some concern that too of trucking it, because it's much more dangerous than transporting, say, than propane if it should have an accident.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Ann? Okay, I see none. Thank you, Ann. Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Deborah Dawson, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The BCP committee has not met since our last legislature meeting. However, we did have an expanded budget committee meeting on the 24th, and I'm going to circle back to that because we've got an issue left over from that. Our next meeting will be on the 14th at 3 p.m. And we will be talking about our committee goals, of course. I expect that one of them that will carry over from last year will be our rollover policy, which we didn't get to. I understand from our county administrator that their department is working on that. Another goal we clearly have is to hire a permanent county administrator this year, of course. And then another thing that was on our agenda last year was the compensation study, which I understand from Ruby Polium is pretty much ready. The RFP is pretty much ready to be evaluated. If I get that wrong, I'm sure Ruby will correct me. And now to throw a spanner in the works of this meeting, which is rolling along quite quickly, Dan Klein has reminded me that at our expanded budget committee on the 24th, we agreed to carry over the question of how we were going to pay for our consultant for the Community Recovery Fund. Are we going to take that money out of the sum that we set aside for the CRF, or are we going to pay that out of other county funds? So I guess I will leave it to our fearless leader to referee a discussion of that. I guess I will say that after hearing so much good news from our finance director, that will probably change how some of us will view the cost of our consultants. So, Madam Chair.
Okay, thanks, Dawson.
You're welcome, Black.
So the reason why we wanted to have the conversation here is because we did not have all of the members present whenever we embarked upon the conversation. At this meeting, we are still missing one of our members. Do you happen to know if Henry was at the expanded budget meeting?
Yes, I believe he was. And I believe his position was that we should be paying the consultants' fees separately from county funds.
Okay. So since we do have an idea of how Henry would vote, is everyone all right just doing a straw poll? Mike Lane?
Just wondered if administration has any comment on this.
Well, I guess my comment in general is that the fund balance, it's rather difficult to administer an ongoing program with fund balance and to know from year to year what our fund balance will be. Having said that, we've just received, a very positive report from our finance director about the coming year, and being that this is, slated to be one time in nature. I think that I don't know. I think it's your decision to make. I would say, I'm by the nature of my position, I am I'm thinking about the county budget in its entirety, and my position is bound to be more conservative. My approach is bound to be more conservative in that that the money set aside for this program, I assumed would all be coming out of the original set aside. So I guess that's where I would land on it. And
A comment to them.
Rick, did you want to chime in?
Yeah. I'd like to comment on it too. Because you can't pay anything directly out of fund balance, it's not an expenditure line item that you can actually write checks or move money around easily to, like other expenses in the general fund budget. I would prefer that it would be that any associated cost would be part of whatever number it is that you originally picked to come out of fund balance. And it would be all contained within that program and not from some ancillary source. Because we're going to have to move the money out of fund balance to an account or various accounts to spend the money and to administer the money, it's easier to do it one time and make that big hit from fund balance, which will require a resolution and a fairly complicated budget adjustment to do. And I don't really want to keep coming back to the trough time and time again for smaller amounts, such as the consultant fee, when we could orchestrate it in a way so it was contained in the original program. And that's just my preference, although I know you have the ultimate decision. And then if we would say we're going to pay it from some other source, then we have to find that other source. Then we have to go back and find, well, if it's not going to come from the original fund balance we've so designated, what line item in the budget are we going to charge it to? And then we have to find where it is you would like to finance this consulting fee. And then, of course, you're going to just end up going back to fund balance to put money into that line item in the budget to pay that consulting fee once you choose it. It seems to cascade with multiple efforts. If you make it more difficult and want to pay it from some ancillary source that we don't even know what that source would be. And I guess I'll shut up there because I might have lost some of you, but.
Thank you, Rick. Rick, I want to ask you a question as far as whenever we had this discussion before, one of the options that was proposed was actually using half of fund balance and then half from the fund. Would that be an accounting nightmare?
Are you speaking specifically for the consulting fees when you say half and half?
Yes.
Or,
yes. For the consulting fees.
Yeah, because let me go back to my first remark. You can't pay anything directly out of fund balance. It's not an expense account. It's a designation of your reserve. So you can't write a check from fund balance. It ultimately has to be moved to some expense account. So when you say we're going to pay half of it from an expense account and half from fund balance, that really can't be done. It's all going to have to come from an expense account, and we can fund that expense account from fund balance originally. But again, we keep going back to the trough.
Okay, I have Rich, John, Deborah, and Greg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would, just to drive this along, I'd put a motion on the table to take additional money out of fund balance to pay the administration of the grant program as a separate amount, so that we have a definite amount that we can tell applicants to the grant program is actually available. Otherwise, we introduce uncertainty. And I would further move that once we have further estimates from the administrator that we select, that we do one draw from the fund balance that's allocated to the grant program and to a line to fund the administration of the grants.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Can I have a second, please? Seconded by Greg Mezzi. And let's open it up for conversation. Deb Dawson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Rick, I don't think anybody here is saying that we're going to write a check out of fund balance. Question is, are we going to set aside additional funds from fund balance, which we can do by resolution, just as we set aside the original amount for the Community Recovery Fund. What does concern me, Rich, I understand that that's what you're trying to put on the table. But if we say, okay, we're going to set aside $1 million by a resolution tonight to add to the pot to pay for those fees, are we going to end up bidding against ourselves when we don't know what kind of bids we're going to get once we clarify the terms of this program for our bidders?
Yeah, if I could clarify, I don't think we have that number tonight, but what my motion would do would set up the structure that we would plan to pay the administrative costs separately out of fund balance, but we draw it at the same time as we drew the amount for the grant program. And then from there would be a line to pay the administrator.
Okay, thank you.
But the amount would not be set until we knew what it was.
So I also just want to pipe in, the boss gave me some direction here. This would require a follow-up resolution to be passed through the budget committee as well,
Yeah, I
once we know.
understand that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, any other questions or comment? I did have Greg Mezzi who wanted to speak prior. Greg, do you have comment on this one?
No, we're good.
Okay, Mike Lane?
Yeah, I think it should come out of the 7 million that we talked about to begin with. We also talked about a process at that time that we set the 7 million. So I guess I'm not in favor of Rich's motion.
Thank you, Mike.
Point of
Greg?
information.
Mhm.
It's not 7 million anymore, right?
Right, it is 6.
0.53.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's specific,
But that's where it started.
not where it is.
That's where it started.
Okay, any other question or comment? Okay, I have Veronica, I'll just go right down the line. Veronica, Lee, and then Randy.
It's also just an informational question. I know that it was agreed to set aside the 6 point whatever million, but has that actually, like, from your perspective, Rick, where is that money now? Like, has it already been put into the expense account such that it would be a hassle to do what Rich is suggesting, or no?
No, no money for it has been moved yet at all.
Okay, thank you.
Lee Shirtliff?
If I'm hearing us correctly, we're passing the concept or voting on a concept to as to where the funds would come from. This is going back to budget and capital for massaging, I would assume. I can support the concept tonight. I don't know how I'll vote on the final resolution, because until I see a scope of work on the consultant and the amount of dollars involved, that really guides where I think it needs to be or not be.
Okay, thank you, Lee. And Randy Brown?
I agree with Lee. That's it.
Okay. So Dan Klein?
I guess I'm now not completely clear what we're doing. Is this a straw poll or is this a real?
This is a motion on the floor. So this is essentially the intent to use funding out of, what we say is fund balance to pay for the consulting. We are not going to make a dollar amount because we don't know how much it would be. The dollar amount would come in the form of a resolution to budget.
So it goes to budget, and then does it have to come back here for approval again?
It would.
And that's what you guys were saying, that you'll vote yes today, but maybe no later? Okay, thank you. That helps a lot.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Is there any more explaining? Because this gets a little confusing. I want to make sure that everyone understands where we're going with this. Okay, let's do a roll call.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
No.
Dan Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
No.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
No.
With 10 ayes, 3 noes.
Okay, that passes. Well, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be.
It was shorter than I expected.
Yeah, me too. That's good news.
Thank Rich for that.
Thanks, Rich. Good idea tonight. Okay, Deborah, do you have anything else? Any other trouble you'd like to start up in budget?
No, I think I'm done. I just want to point out to everyone that there is a delicious apple pie baked by Dan Klein, who is famous for his apple pies. And it was so good that I broke my almost 2 years or 1 year of keto to have a piece. And if my husband's listening, I'm sorry, honey.
Okay, next committee report, Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Henry is not with us this evening. Anne or Veronica, would either of you like to report?
I vote for Veronica.
I was going to vote for Anne.
That was easy.
I don't have my notes in front of me. I can start and you can add in. Let's see, we had some discussion about the diversity statement that was approved through the committee and plans to roll that out and really integrate it to like all of the work that's going on in the county at the various like levels and aspects that different departments are going to integrate it. You saw the Black History Month proclamation and presentation earlier that we already discussed. I'm blanking. What else? There was more. Annie?
I'm looking up the agenda packet myself. We talked about Team Jedi, goal setting, Juneteenth celebrations for 2022. And we had a presentation similar to what we had today on reimagining public safety.
Great.
That's all I have.
I guess we also, Henry led us through a review of the goals from last year and brainstorming goals for this upcoming year, like many of the other committees did.
Great, good teamwork. Thank you both. I had one question and was wondering, has there been any conversation about Juneteenth holiday for county employees?
There was, I don't remember what it was. Deanna, are you trying to answer?
Am I allowed to speak now?
Yes.
Okay. So just to be thoughtful, process-wise, there was discussion. Last year, this process has been a multi-month process working in collaboration with the Human Resources Department. We reached out to Jonathan, who was the former county attorney, to ask what the process steps would be. Should we recommend that as a potential day off for employees in alignment with some of the other states and national holidays? We were advised to review all of the contracts for what the different agreements are, in addition to working with payroll on getting some budget estimates on what this would potentially cost for the county to add an additional holiday, or and also provide recommendations on what that would look like. We will be providing a memo with potential options to WDIC at the February meeting for consideration, and then based upon what comes out of that committee, I'm assuming something will be brought to the larger governing body at some point. Also knowing we'll need to, again, re-engage our new county attorney, Bill Troy, along the way with whatever decisions are made. So that's where we are, and we will, again, continue to share that information with the legislature. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Any other questions for Anne or Veronica?
I hope not.
It's your lucky day, Annie. No other questions. Next committee, Public Safety Committee, Chair Rich John.
Sorry about that. The Public Safety Committee met on January 20th. We reviewed our priorities from 2021 and had a good conversation about where we accomplished what we set out to do and other areas where we didn't finish, and new things that came up during the course of the year. We will be meeting again on February 17th at 3 o'clock. And one of the items will be setting our priorities for 2022. Other than that, I just mentioned our jail population is at 34 with 5 board outs. And that's my report.
Thank you, Rich. Any questions for Rich? I see none. Any individual member filed resolutions? There are none. And we have meetings of the previous minutes of the previous meeting, January 18th, 2022. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Randy Brown, seconded by Deborah Dawson. Any questions or comments? I see none. Let's do a roll call.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff, Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown, Shauna Black,
Yes.
with 13 ayes, 0 noes.
Is there any unfinished business? Rich John?
Yes, just to add to our earlier conversation about taxes on rental cars. I got an email from one of our constituents who's watching our meeting and said that they rented a car at the airport. And just for information, there's the 8% sales tax, but there's an additional 12% state tax that's already on there. If there is no county tax to my knowledge, but it's a 20% tax on renting a car here as it is. And then there is the fee for the one-time fee for renting a car that is charged at the airport. And this person was asking whether that fee could be waived if a local person goes to the airport and does not fly, but rents a car there, saying this would be an aid to local renters. So I just passed that along, that message just came in. Thanks.
Oh, good information, Rich. Thank you. I would also like to make note that we made history this evening. For one, we didn't have to tell anyone that they were on mute. And the second thing is that it is 7:37 and the Tompkins County Legislature is about to adjourn.
Despite my best efforts.
Despite Deborah Dawson. So if I can have a mover to adjourn. Moved by Deborah, seconder please. Seconded by Veronica. And let's do a roll call. Oh, we don't have to. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Hey, thank you all. Have a good night.
Don't forget the pie, guys.